Okay, 301. Welcome everyone to this session titled Circling the Dragon, Diagnosing and Resolving Organizational Culture Issues. This will be presented by Tim Lalonde. Tim works with companies to help them use leading edge tools and technology to be more competitive and effective in their industries. Tim specializes in leveraging technology to develop business roadmaps that create and support change from within, with a focus on business process reengineering, project management, architecture and design, business case development, and problem solving. During this live presentation, please feel free to enter any questions you may have into the chat window. After the formal portion of the presentation, we will read your questions to Tim to answer. This presentation is also being recorded and will be posted later to YouTube for those who could not attend today. Over to you, Tim.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So before I even get into the presentation, this presentation is actually quite timely for the incidents that occurred at the start of this series. And that is a shout out to the moderators of this for thinking on their feet, being reactive, working the problem, and coming to a resolution. So Robin and Alana and everybody else that was dealing with that unforeseen incident, great kudos to you, how you work the problem, and to some degree is a phenomenal segue into this presentation. So what is Circle the Dragon? So this presentation is about how to train your inner dragon slayer. As project managers, we have all been presented with situations where there's a deep-rooted issue that is causing delays, stress to the engagement with no apparent path to success, and way too many meetings with working groups that are tension-filled. Many of the seminars that you've heard to already have all been addressed around the soft skills and how to receive feedback, give feedback, deal with stressors. This is all part of that layered approach, things that can go in your kit bag. The thing to remember is that it can be a technical issue or an alignment issue of the key stakeholders, but you, the project manager, are being pressed and you're stressed to get it going. So again, going back to the keynote address is, as the project manager, you see the whole field. So you're feeling the stress from all the different layers. So when you're feeling that tension and they're trying to root out an issue, those are the things that you need to take a step back and say, how do I approach that? And as of those of us who have walked through this path many moons, we have seen some of these situations derail projects completely. And we have seen others where a situation like this was the catalyst for even more success. So we've seen the epic fails and we've seen the phenomenal successes, but there was a fork in the road, and the fork in the road was an obstacle. And that obstacle can either be the one that stops you from moving forward, or it becomes the thing that you survive and go around to even greater success than everybody witnessed for. So it's that ability to look beyond what's in front of you. So what caused one to die under its own weight, and what caused the other one to remove the obstacle? That's the purpose of this session, is to identify that those things that are presented to us are things that can be overcome with just a different perspective, and at times just a different approach. And it might surprise you on how this has been a repeatable pattern, not just in your craft as project managers, but for armies over many millennia. So countries, civilization, armies have been dealing with this problem, and yet it's surfacing itself in some of the simplest things. It's also why at times you cannot fix that rattle that's in your new car. There's a rattle in the car, there's a rubbing sound, and it's driving you crazy. How do you get to what's causing that issue? So it doesn't have to be armies, doesn't have to be boiling an ocean. It can be something as simple as, where's that rattle coming from? And this workshop is about making an agnostic and a pragmatic approach to getting past that obstacle. That's simple to understand and easy to execute. So much so that I used to coach basketball, and I used to coach just the boys and girls teams for offense, which we will speak later in this session. So it is not just about our professional crafts, but some of the simple things that cause irritants throughout the day. So it goes back to my adage and my mantra: see a problem, fix a problem. So what is the dragon? So we talked about what's circling the dragon. What's the dragon? Well, it's an issue with no obvious solution that may be caused by one or more factors. And that's the key element here. Sometimes it's a problem it's easy to fix. Other times it's just like, there's more to this. We're not seeing it. So an analogy I'm going to use a lot today is you're leaving your place of work or you're leaving your home and you're walking towards your vehicle. You have a flat tire. You can clearly see that you've got a flat tire. And at the same time, your car won't start. So how do you process that? If I fix the flat tire, the car still can't move forward. If I fix the car from the starting, I still can't move forward. So it's that ability to say, what is the problem we need to solve? And those of individuals that have tried to solve, whether it's a construction site problem, a mining problem, a technical problem, a computer problem, or a software problem, or a stakeholder that's just not buying in, how do you effectively break that down? That's what this framework is for, is how to slay that dragon, how to break it down and slay that dragon. So I'm going to say the word orange. Everybody's processed that word long enough? What did you see when you hear the word orange? Not going to have a poll because that's beyond my technology, but did you see the color or the fruit? Because I said the word orange, I may have been thinking color, and you heard the word fruit. So going back to the previous speaker, what was my intent versus what was my impact? And you would be surprised how many times where we're working on something and you can feel an agitation in the room. You can feel it, that there's a disconnect somewhere. And many times, and for those of you that are on the call that have worked with me in the past, you'll say, oh, here he goes again with his orange conversation. But it's the most clarifying statement you can do because, first of all, it's non-judgmental, it's non-technical, and everybody understands the word orange, but they'll have different perspectives. So this is really prevalent in the professional trades, where Group A calls one word one thing and Group B calls it something different. Same word, two different meanings. And yet people are going to act on it from what they believe. So if nothing else is remembered about this session, I want to leave you with what I call the orange conversation. I use it weekly, in some cases many times in the same day. It's whenever I sense something in the team or whom we're communicating with, we're not quite understanding what that word means. It could be, what was the goal? What was the stakeholder? What was the KPI? And it may seem, well, everybody knows what that is, but is everybody in agreement with it? So I always say, let's have an orange conversation. What did you mean by that word? And many times you'll see everybody calm down because they've recognized, hey, there may be a disconnect there. So now I'm going to take you on a hard left turn. So now I gave you a nice big volleyball, a big beach ball that says the orange conversation. If you remember nothing about this session, please leave with the orange conversation. The second part of the conversation, which is the meat of this session, is from a gentleman called John Boyd, who was a lieutenant colonel in the US Air Force, who was absolutely obsessed with anomalies. He was a belligerent individual, he was hard-headed, but he had no equal when it came to being a fighter pilot. He taught at the Top Gun fighter school, and he couldn't understand why he was better than everybody else. Some people would have taken an ego approach and said, yeah, I'm just that good. But that's not who John Boyd was. He was obsessed with the anomaly. That doesn't make any sense to him. Why am I better than you are? So then he investigated all the major battles that went back thousands of years. And it was called the patterns of conflict. But what he really focused on is, why did the superior force fail against the lesser force? The lesser force should have been quashed. Why weren't they quashed? And then he created this thing called the OODA loop, which the rest of this session will delve deeply into. But it was also what he was known for as this 40-second rule. When he taught in the Top Gun school, he would allow the student to get into a position of attack behind him and lock their radar on him. So he was now the defender of a situation. And within 40 seconds, he would reverse the role. So a highly trained pilot would be behind him, would lock in their radar, and within 40 seconds, he could reverse it. And he was undefeated. In over 400 matches, he was undefeated. And again, many people thought it was ego-based, but for him, it wasn't. And it was like, there's something I'm doing differently. And what was that? And what it was again, human nature. He didn't fight human nature. He actually looked into it and says, why am I able to do that better? And then some of you on this call right now are going to say, what does this have to do with trying to placate a stakeholder? And you're about to find out it has everything to do with that. And it's the OODA loop. So it breaks down into observe, orient, decide, and then act. And because the word loop is in it, it means do it again and keep doing it. So what's the observe? Well, what did you see? Orient, what does it mean? Decide, what are my options? And the last one is act. Done it. And did it change what I was looking at? So many of the things that we talked about from the previous session about feedback. Well, what is feedback? Feedback is exactly that. I said something. Did you receive it the way I said it? And then getting that feedback loop back again by asking another question. So those are the things that the OODA loop does that we're all doing naturally. Just like the individuals did at the beginning of this day when everything was going sideways. How did they break that problem down? From an observation perspective, it was pretty clear, right? Somebody had hacked it. There were some things there that were untoward and some videos that will probably give people some nightmares. But then we oriented ourselves to that as what are our options? We came back with options. We tried this, we tried that. We acted on those options. And by the end of the day, they've all been cleared. So to Robin and to the rest of the team, kudos. You've now briefed all of the new presenters and on how things are going. The next presentations have all gone better because they actually broke it down. And intuitively, they were following this. So it's not net new. It's just an identification of how it is. So let's break them down a little bit deeper. The big thing with the observe step, and it's something that I stress a lot with our teams, is that it must be non-judgmental. It is a raw observation. What did I witness? What did I see? And it must be passive. So you let the data come to you. You consume it in its natural form. And whether that's in the case of the incident today, it's a video. It's like, oh, that's pretty rude. But it's, what is it? What does it mean? And then you collect that information. And what's the baseline? And we see this a lot with deep-rooted problems. What's the baseline? What was this before it broke? And more importantly, get evidence. Don't rely on anecdotal information. Don't rely on opinions. Goes back to the non-judgmental. Get evidence. And then have interviews. And this is the one that is the act of listening. Listen to understand. You're having an interview, not to convey your point, but to listen to their understanding. What are they trying to convey to you? What is the issue that they're trying to solve? What's the problem they're trying to solve? What's the goal they're trying to achieve? What are they trying to do? So it is open-ended, it's conversational, and you will listen to understand, but you ask questions to validate your understanding. So it goes back to intent versus impact. So I heard you say this. Did you actually mean that? And this is how I heard what you said. Does that make sense? So this is the observed stage, where you're letting your observations dictate your understanding. And then you're going to validate those. You're going to ask the questions again to confirm that observation. Do not be quick to say, yeah, I got it, move on. Take the time to process that. The orientation step. This is the one that so many professionals are quick to get to. Yeah, I heard you, boom, and they start doing it. But it's like, no, it's all about providing context. What's the context of what I actually observed? What does it mean in relationship to the culture and traditions of an organization, the culture and traditions of the people? Like, so often we work in a multifaceted environment and we have people from completely different cultures. So they're actually seeing and interacting with us differently. And how does that impact what I was looking at? What's my cultural and traditional backgrounds? What does that mean to where I come from? And generic heritage, what's the business line that you're in? What's the construction site that you're doing? Is this another road that you're building that's similar to the last road that you're doing? Or is there something unique about this road that was different than the other road? And one that gets missed by a lot of organizations is, what's the time horizon? Do I need a quick solution now? Or do I have time to fix this? Goes back to briefing. When you've recognized the issue and you've listened to understand, has all of the stakeholders had enough time to process what's going on? Goes back to what I said about the 3-step process. If you're getting stuck in the working groups, have you consumed wasted time, 3-4 weeks of time of unproductivity because you can't break free of the problem because the decision makers haven't been briefed? So don't give up a runway. Don't give up a time horizon, but be aware of what that time horizon is. Do I have 6 months to solve this problem? Or do I have 6 nanoseconds to fix this problem because there's going to be a car crash because I'm driving on the 401 and somebody has slammed the brakes on in front of me? So I need that time horizon is now. But if we're building a project plan that's going to span 18 months and I need to spend more time in this, do I have 6 weeks to spend time on this step? And is there any new information? And the classic line for those of us who come from the technology field, when we're working on a help desk and somebody calls and says something's not working, typically the first thing that comes out of our mind is, what changed? Something changed. It was working 5 minutes ago. Why isn't it working now? And that's that new information. What's new? Was there a change implemented over last night? Did a patch go in? So on and so forth. And then most importantly, and sometimes this gets lost on individuals, what was your previous experience with this? Have you seen this before? Is this a repeatable pattern? Is this similar to something else? And then the part that is sometimes your best friend, and it can also be your enemy, and that's analysis and synthesis. Taking that information, processing it, doing some experimentation, doing all of those things. But it's the orientation step. It's that ability that says, I've observed something, and what does it mean? Context over content. And all too often we're obsessed with content and we forgot about the context. And the context is going to shape what the next step is. And that is, what are your decisions? So based on what I saw, what does it mean from what I saw? Now, what are my decisions? What are my capable options for this? So based on that, what have you uncovered? What options do you have? Make a list of those decisions, going back to previous presenters. That's where you do the brain writing, like just write down the options and don't worry about, is it silly or not silly, but write them down based on what I observed and what that means to me. Is this an option? And instead of doing it right away, list down all your options. But then another step that gets missed a lot, again, going back to my experience of being called in and working on projects that have gone sideways, is you made a decision to do something. Did everybody have an understanding of what the expectation was? If I do A, I'm expecting X. If I'm going to do option B, I'm expecting Y. It's not to say that you're going to get X or get Y. It's the expectation is, if we do this, I expect something to happen. Have you articulated that? And nothing is off limits. This is where sometimes you need to actually flush through this, especially with introverts, because like the previous presenters have said, there's always dynamic people in the problem. There are people that are trying to get into the problem and solve it, and there are people in there trying to get out as fast as possible. They don't want to have anything to do with this. They're doing anything they can say that it's not me. And anybody who's had to deal with the service desk of a telecom company because their cell phone's not working or their internet's not working, it's case in point of the typical culture there is, how do I not make this my problem? But what you're trying to say is the inverse, is it is my problem to start off with. I've recognized that there's a problem. I've oriented myself to that problem. It is now on this team or me personally to come up with options to move forward. And be open-minded. Don't be boxed in. Don't get what I call professionally arrogant. Well, it can't be this because I've got 3 letters after my name that tells me it's not this. It's like, well, no, hang on a second, right? Be humble, right? Where are you in the conversation? I say that to many, many people. Where are you in the conversation? Are you trying to help or are you just trying to get out? And think each option through. So many times we get into this stage and we didn't take that half pause that says, think it through. If I make a left turn, am I actually going to head towards the solution or am I just moving away from the solution? And you may not know the answer, but at least think it through. It goes back to, if you're going to do option A, you expect the result of X. And that's this very important step. And then the last one is just act. Act on it. Decide which one you're going to do and act on it. Just start. You will be amazed of all the naysayers you're going to see about this will never work. We've done it before. It's failed 1,000 times. It just will not happen. And then ultimately a decision maker will say, you know what? I've got enough information. I've oriented myself to that information. I'm going to make an informed decision and we're going to act on that decision. And yes, it may fail just like the last 17 failed. Or we may have a little bit more information this time and now it'll move forward. So break free of the analysis paralysis. Act on it. And it allows you to test your decision. So did you get the impact? And remember that no change is actually a valid observation. So when you've got 15 options available to you and you got 15 strong personalities that are telling you that this is the answer, and you've eliminated one, you've acted on one decision and no result came, that's actually a positive statement because you now can take it off the list. It's definitely not that. And then here's another key advice. Put it back in. If you changed X to make a change and nothing happened, put it back to its previous value, whatever that was. If in fact what your action did changed something, because you don't want to create a compound issue. So rinse and repeat. You've done it, you've acted on it, come around again. Did anything change? If so, how did that impact your theory? Was the issue solved? Are there any decisions to be made based on what your action? Did your action solve the problem? Or is still one more problem to go? I solved the flat tire problem. I've got the tire replaced. Now I got to get the car started. Oh, there's one more problem to go. Keep going. And then you just act on it again. So it's the rinse and repeat. How fast can you do it? So what John Boyd figured out was that he was doing this faster than his other pilot. He could move through this loop faster than his opponent. And then those of us who are old enough to know about Desert Storm 1 was the whole concept of the US military called shock and awe, sense and respond. That's actually John Boyd's work being reframed into a different terminology, but it was the ability to get into your enemy's OODA loop. As soon as you could get moving faster than they could, then they were forced to wait until what you did and react to it. So it's the difference between being proactive and reactive. When you're reactive, you're in somebody else's OODA loop. When you're proactive, then you're actually dictating the terms, and that goes to service desks, that goes to construction sites, that goes to anything across the board. It's not about enemies here. It's about whom is going to lead and who's going to follow. And by taking a proactive approach, in many cases, you prevent downstream problems. So when you're dealing with stakeholders that are not understanding where you are, then it's your opportunity to look at this that says, how do I get them to understand where we are? What's their language? Listen to understand, orient yourself to their issues, make decisions that make sense to them, act on those decisions. Did it move the stakeholder forward? Did it reduce the tension in the room? If not, then try something else. But it's that continually going through that loop that's going to be the recipe to success. And it's very similar in theme to all the other sessions that were done today. This is just a pragmatic approach to what's being wrapped around problem solving. But what is problem solving? Problem solving is exactly that. There's something that's in front of us that needs to be solved. And sometimes the problem is misunderstanding. It's just, we don't understand. We don't know what we're after. What's the goal? What's this or what's that? And if we look back to the feedback loop, it's exactly the feedback loop. So now I want to take you on a fun journey. Going back to the beginning of this session, I talked about, I used to coach basketball, love basketball. And grade 8 girls and boys teams are just learning their craft. But what I quickly understood was that they didn't understand why they were doing things. It was easy to dictate to somebody in grade 8, do this, do this, do this. go over here. But what I learned was that they would never understand the game. What's the game within the game? So I use the OODA loop that says, we're going to explain motion offense and motion defense to you in these 4 letters. And years later, some of these individuals are now doctors, medical doctors, and they're engineers. They've come back to me and said that the OODA loop is still now muscle memory for them. So yes, it was taught through basketball, but it's the same problem. So basically, if you're on offense, where's the ball? And where are you in relationship to the ball is the orientation step. So if I don't have the ball, where am I in relationship to that ball? Are you going to go towards the ball or are you going to go away from the ball? So if your teammate has the ball, you observe, my teammate's got the ball, I'm on offense. So where am I in relationship to the ball? Well, I'm going to either go towards it to get the pass, or I'm going to go away from the ball so that I can go and provide something downstream. And then I'm going to act on that. And that's the key. Act on it. So don't get caught in this analysis paralysis game. So act on it and then re-loop back around. The inverse of that is, if you look for the ball and you realize the other team has the ball, oh, I must be on defense. I'm clearly on defense now. So where is your player? So if you're doing person-to-person defense, where am I in relationship to the player I'm supposed to be covering? Where is the basket in relationship to the ball? And am I going to block that passing lane, or am I going to deny a path to the basket? So you've reduced the number of options, and then they acted on it. And then based on their actions, what changed? So from the perspective of, this isn't just about project management, this isn't just about your stakeholders, this is just about getting through life and crossing the street and not getting hit by a car. But ultimately, when you start to acknowledge that you've got to go through the 4 steps, you can't go from observe to decide. Those are individuals that observe something, they make a decision, and going back to previous presenters, this is when intent can many times break what their impact was, because they were quick to do something and they didn't take the time to orient themselves. That says, like a simple thing like the orange conversation, did you actually orient yourself to whom am I speaking to, or whom is the group that is going on with? And when you made that action, did you go back to observe what the action did, or did you just drop the hand grenade into the room and walk out, which so many people do, right? I'm going to give you a problem. Here's the hand grenade. And they pull the pin and they throw it in the room and they hope for the best. And what you're trying to say is, no, I'm okay. I'll take the hand grenade from you, but give me the pin so that I can stick it back in once we solve it. And that's that. You have to do it. It's a loop. Now, what's the circle the dragon piece? Well, if the dragon is the problem, and rarely in life is it one problem, we wish we had that. If we look at all the social economic things that are going on right now, the absolute uncertainty that everybody is facing with, not just the project managers that are on this call, but everybody on your teams, whether that's, food uncertainty, shelter uncertainty, job uncertainty, we're all being faced with it. So when you have that problem that's there and it's deeply embedded, there's always more than one factor at play. So you've got to be able to go through the loops. And to slay that dragon, you've got to repeat the loop many times. But be very pragmatic. And this is the one that so many issues are, be one change at a time. You can do them very quickly, but don't try to do 6 changes at a time, because by sheer volume, you may have found the solution and it was the 3rd one, but because you put in the first 2 and the last 2, you've now trumped what you've done, and you still didn't fix the issue because you created another problem. So it goes back to a respectful approach. And this is really important when you're dealing with and I call stakeholders in a general term, those are the people on the same level as you, below you, and above you. And it's all the people that are invested in your engagement, right? You want to make sure that you're pragmatic and that it is predictable on the approach that you're going to take. It makes your meetings go faster. It makes your working groups become more efficient, and you can get to root cause analysis very quick, because your very first step is non-judgmental, passive observation. The facts are the facts. There's a saying I use that I cannot change how we got here. There's nothing I can do to change how I got to this moment today, right now. But I am in complete control of what I do from here. And that goes to your teams as well when they're trying to deal with a problem. It pays little advantage to whom caused the problem or what caused the problem at this moment in time, because it's not going to undo the problem. What are you going to do about the problem now that you've recognized what it is? So I call it chipping away at it. And always document your findings. And that's how you will eventually remove the obstacle to be successful. Or if you don't choose to do this and you just get hung up with there's too many decisions and nobody will act on those decisions, then it will be crushed under its own weight, because the decision list just gets bigger, the observations just get worse, and you can orient yourselves 100 ways from Sunday, but the facts are the facts. It's broken. If we don't make a decision to change where we are, nothing's going to change. Which goes to another saying that many people use: nothing changes till you do. Right? So it's where you as the PM, can't stress it enough, profound respect for the craft. You see the entire organization. It's a rare position to have. And yet you're not responsible for those areas, but you are aware of all of those areas. So you have an enormous amount of influence in making sure that people are educated in the right way. Now, this is John Boyd's OODA loop. If I had shown you this slide at the beginning, it would have been overwhelming. It would have been, this is just noise. So picture this slide now as your day-to-day living now. It's just noise. I can't get my head wrapped around it. So going back to the first presentation, which was the 3-pass process, I walked you down this journey. I showed you who the creator was. I now broke it down into just 4 elements: observe, orient, decide, act. Now I've taken you into the what we call the physical layer. This is the nuts and bolts of how it all works. And as you can see, it's a series of loops within loops, 4 loops. That's the 3-pass process, meeting the orange conversation, meeting Circle the Dragon. And yet, the ones that treat this profession as a craft, you're doing it naturally. I didn't actually teach you anything that you didn't already know or do. But what I hopefully have done for you is giving you something in your kit bag that says, hey, when something's not quite going right, how can I look at this a little bit different? How can I help those individuals that are stuck in analysis paralysis? How can I help the decision makers to make an informed decision? Now, I'm going to take you on a bit of another left turn. 3 lefts make a right, by the way. Similar to the basketball conversation, many of the issues that I see so many PMs getting involved with when it comes to businesses is, where does this, for lack of a better word, technology engagement fit within the larger organization, and why is there so much friction? So for those of you that come from the construction trades, they may say, well, it doesn't apply to us. But I would argue that in 2025, there's probably more technology on your construction site than there was 20 years ago. And as someone who worked with cellular technology in mines in Northern Ontario, the collision of those 2 worlds are becoming fast and furious. And more importantly, the rules have not changed. The rules of how technology impacts a business have not changed. So now I want to give you a real world example of how I use this IT stack in relationship to the OODA loop to help organizations understand where they are in relationship to an engagement. So it's called the IT stack. Again, something I learned in the early 2000s. It's been around probably decades before that, but it basically is quite simple. Everything sits on a network. And for those of us who come from a networking background, it's always the network at default. And then from there, there's a technology layer. So that's your servers and your hardware and your storage arrays and all of those types of things. And then there's the application layer, which is what most users see. It's the financial software, it's the ERP software, it's the project management software. It's the software that a human will engage with to make something happen. And the top layer is the business drivers. So why are we doing this? So if you look at the stack, why is from the top down. Why we do something comes from the business. Then they have applications that actually need to drive the business. That application sits on top of technology. That technology needs a network to run, whether it's cloud-based, internal-based, or whether it's your cell phone, it needs a network. And lastly, can that network support the application? Again, it's as old as time. It's not wrong, but is often lost today because there's just too much going on. But if we take a step back and say, let's just break it down. Where is this coming from? Again, during the orientation step, you're going to figure this out, but you would have observed the network layer. You would have observed the technology layer. You would have observed the application layer. You would have observed the business drivers through interviews. You would have done all that. Then you would have oriented yourself to where's the friction coming from? Where's the obstacle? What needs to be looked at? Could be a combination of things. But more importantly, the value proposition comes from the bottom up. So when organizations or your engagements takes a solid look at the network and says, yes, the network can support the technology is solid, it's patched, it's current, it's doing everything it needs to do, the applications are working well within that technology, so therefore we should be achieving the business values. Again, doesn't matter whether you're a software company, an accounting firm, a retailer, a distributor, a warehouse, or you're building condos, right? Did this stack fall into play? And again, for those of you on the call, you're going, okay, he seems to be rambling. He seems to be talking about an OODA loop, and he seems to be talking about this. How do these things correlate? Well, they actually correlate because it's actually using one beside the other. So it's the OODA loop is for problem solving in general. Again, I'm driving down the 401. I'm coming into Toronto. The red lights have kicked in. They've given me enough warning. Do I have enough time to stop? Or some guy just cut in front of me and I have to slam on the brakes? Or it's, I need to do a strategic 5-year plan. I need to change my ERP system. I need to get the ground broken on a new condo development. A problem's a problem to be solved. And then how am I going to solve that? So for those that have critical eyes, you'll notice there's a small difference to this slide than the one that was John Boyd. And that is we've added the time horizon because John Boyd was thinking military strategy and he never cared about the time horizon. For him, time was about reducing my enemy's time to react. But in the business world, time is everything. How much time do I have? The more time I have, the better decisions I can make. The less time I have, the more direct I need to be in the decision-making process. I can't let the decision process drag me down. Many of the conversations I have with PMs that are in projects that have gone sideways and they're feeling the tensions of whether there's the working group tensions or the stakeholder tensions is, does everybody understand the goals that we've all agreed to? Does everybody understand where that fits? That's that orientation step. And what needs to be done goes back to what I said in the first one with the 3-pass process. If you're stuck in a working group and there are no decision makers there, that's your first problem. You have to make sure that the decision makers are aware of their options as soon as possible to give them the longest time horizon to make the most informed decision. And it's all connected. And that's the end of the story. And now I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Anything? No.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for your second presentation today.
It was flawless. Thank you, Robin, for all the work you did to make it flawless.
We can allow a couple minutes here if anybody would like to put a question into the chat for Tim. Lots of compliments, of course.
I'm trying to see where I can see the chat there. There we go. There we go. So, too many screens open.
Lots of comments. Thank you. Great examples and comparisons used. Someone asked, how do you remember all this?
The thing I tell the teams for both the 3-pass process and for the OODA loop is make it muscle memory. If you make it muscle memory for every meeting you go to and every time someone's coming to you with a problem, whether it's a family member with they can't get their laptop to work or they're trying to get Netflix to work or for whatever it is, when you take the time to reflect on, what are you looking at? what are my options, make a decision on that, act on it. You'll find that once it becomes muscle memory, and it also engages what I think we've lost with a lot of this technology today, and that's critical thinking. We've almost put critical thinking into the back because I can just Google it. Google it will give me the answer. But one of the things about critical thinking is when Google comes back with that answer, or ChatGPT comes back with that answer, or OpenAI comes back with that answer, take the time to orient yourself to, did the answer actually make sense? Was it an expected answer? And that last step, just take a pause. So you've observed the answer. Before you actually decide to go with it and act on it, take time to say, did I actually phrase the question right? Did it actually come back with an expected response? And when you do proceed with whatever it says, did it come back with what you expected? And if it didn't, that goes back to what other speakers have said about curiosity. Feed the curiosity, because that's the one that's going to get you out of trouble, right? That whole, what was I expecting? And oh, that's interesting. And that whole feed the beast, feed the curiosity piece. I tell that to my children. I tell that to friends. I tell that to people that are learning the craft, right? Like, be interested when an unexpected result returns. When you do something and trust me, I've had colossal failures, both in my personal life with buildings and construction and in my professional life, where I was this close to greatness, but I was also that close to failure. And it tipped over on the side of failure. So what did I learn from it? Why did it fail? Is just as important as to why did it succeed. And sometimes with success, I say, given good luck or good management, take good luck any day. Just take the win. But it's that feed the curiosity. And with ChatGPT, OpenAI, which are phenomenal tools and can be leveraged, don't give up our human responsibility of critical thinking.
Super insightful. Thank you so much, Tim.
And I think I'm on time, correct? That I fit in the window? Yeah.
Yep, we're good.
Yeah. And again, thank
Thanks
you for the
again.
moderators. It was not a good day for you. I'm sure you're more stressed out than I am. So thank you for surviving the day and sticking with it.